minute, a 1 minute courtesy for folks, and then we'll jump in. While we're waiting, if folks can let me know, where are you calling from? Either type in the chats or come off mute, either one.
Atlanta.
Very nice. Bay Area. All right, cool. Well, let's begin. Hello, everyone. My name is Albert Chan, and I am so excited to be hosting this session around resume and interview strategies to get into big tech. We have a lot to cover today, so I'm going to jump right in. I know this session's only 45 minutes. I can go over a little bit, but here's really what I want to cover. Let's go back here. So, a few things. Number one is we definitely want to talk about how can we craft a standout resume, especially for big tech. What are some interviewing tips that I've seen work really well? I want to share this college hedgehog framework. It's by Jim Collins. If you've read his book From Good to Great, you may be familiar with this. It's a play off of the Ikigai Japanese framework. And then as two bonuses, you may or may not have noticed or knew about when you signed up for this class, which is I do want to offer two additional things. One is a LinkedIn tips and tricks, and then also share with you how you can get your own personalized analysis for your resume that I can do for you. Okay, and then we'll open it for Q&A. Because we have so much to cover today, I was hoping that we could leave the Q&A to the end. So if you have questions, please jot them down and then just wait to the very end to ask them if that works for everyone. Okay. So a little bit about me is, this picture is me and my family. It's a couple years old. My kids are a little bit older now. Sheila and I have been married for 20 years. She works at Nintendo, so she's the fun and cool parent. And then the bottom are the logos of my, education and my professional career. So I started my career at Procter Gamble, did that for about 10 years in sales and marketing. Then I went to Google, held numerous roles there for about 7 to 8 years. Then I decided to go to a startup as a chief revenue officer at a company called Ticker. Realized it wasn't my thing, and then decided to come back to big tech, where I've been for the last 2.5, 3 years at Meta. I went to Indiana University for my undergraduate and finished my executive program at Harvard Business School a few years ago. Okay, it's a little bit about me. Over the last 20 years or so, I've seen a lot of different resumes. Yes, Hoosiers. I've seen a lot of different resumes and interviews on both sides of the table. Right, so I'm definitely excited to share what I've observed and some tips and tricks that work. Okay. So apologies in advance. The deck that I'm going to share with all of you, I'll send this to you all afterwards, is going to be pretty wordy. Okay, this is not my usual style of doing presentations and slides, but I want to use hopefully this opportunity to have the slides that you can use as more of a like a guidebook and a reference after this session. Okay, so it's going to be pretty detailed, right? And it's really intentional. Okay, so let's start off with kind of like the overall purpose of the resume, right? As many of you know, resumes are only looked at for roughly 7 to 10 seconds by the recruiter and by the hiring manager. Right. And so the purpose is not for you to tell your whole life story. It is a tool to get you that interview. Okay. So it must quickly demonstrate the value and fit that you bring to the role and to the organization. It must ideally pass the ATS, the applicant tracking system. This is a system that's pretty archaic, and it weeds out roughly 90+% of applicants. Okay, so what I want to share with you today are ways to ideally overcome the ATS kind of weeding process, right? And figure out how do we get your resume tip-top shape so it moves up to the top. Okay, so not only pass the ATS, but also get you noticed as well. Okay, a couple of principles and key sections on a good resume. The first one, very simple. You'd be surprised how many people don't do this well, which is your contact information, keeping it simple, accurate, and I'll share an example here later. Summary and profile. Okay, a lot of people leave this out. I highly, highly recommend you actually have a summary profile section. Call it 3 to 5 sentences. This is really crucial because this is your TLDR of your resume. This section should summarize the entire resume, meaning that you don't want to just put skill sets there. You want to really bring yourself into kind of out in this section, right? Talk about the companies you work for, the number of people that you've managed, the kind of dollar amount of responsibility that you've had, whatever it is that you believe can add a little bit more kind of flavor and color to your resume. This is where you put it. Okay, and again, it summarizes the entire resume. It does not summarize your skill sets. Okay. Every section in the experience should follow this format of either a STAR method or a CAR method. Okay, STAR is situation, tasks, action, and results. CAR is what P&G uses, called context, action, and results. Either way, the point being is when you have your bullet points for what you've accomplished, it must be like very action oriented, and it must be quantifiable, okay, and measurable, okay? That shows the value that you have brought to that role and to that organization, okay? So it's extremely crucial that you have numbers, percentages, dollar amounts, whatever that is. Excuse me. Also, again, focus on impact. And then depending on the type of jobs that you're applying for, the job description, the bullet points that you choose, you should probably tailor, okay? Meaning that if you're applying for more of a business development and sales role, the experiences that you choose to highlight, you'll probably focus more on that versus if you choose to interview or apply for a project manager role, those bullet points will probably be more project manager related, okay? Education-wise, obviously list your degrees, your certifications, etc. I highly recommend you don't put your graduation date. There's been a lot of research in regards to ageism, right, as a bias on both ends. Either you're too young or you're too old, right? Best thing to do is not put the date. Now, of course, the hiring manager and team can definitely kind of do the math themselves. But if this goes through the ATS, it does not. Okay, so highly recommend you do not include a graduation date. Okay, so many people have asked me, what does my resume look like? So for this session, I'm going to be very transparent. I'm going to share with you my resume, okay? And then over the next couple of slides, we're going to do a deep dive into this, okay? We're going to call out some things that I mentioned in the previous slide on my resume just to bring it to life a little bit, okay? But the first thing you may notice is I don't have a very colorful resume, right? It is very black and white, very straight line, and very boring. That is intentional. That is because this is what ATS wants. Okay, this is what ATS is trained on. They do not like columns. They do not like colors and pictures. Okay, this would do very well in the ATS, our applicant tracking system. I don't want to say ATS system because that's what the S stands for. Okay. Pretty resumes are great for in-person, right? Once you have the interview, you meet the interviewer in person, hand them the pretty resume if you want to. If you're submitting this online, go with something like this, okay? So if we do a deep dive into this and kind of like analyze my resume, so the top part, again, very simple, contact information, email, phone number, LinkedIn is very common these days, okay? Some people I've seen put their location, where they're willing to relocate and live, that is totally fine as well, but very brief and simple one-liner, okay? Summary and profile, like I mentioned, this is the essence of the entire resume, okay? Most people, most recruiters, hiring managers will probably just read this and then skim everything else, okay? So this has to really bring you out, like I said, Here you may notice that I have the different types of companies that I've worked at, the responsibility that I've had from a P&L, from a region standpoint, and also what I do outside of work, okay, that I believe can add value to the organization, such as teaching AI, being on a board member, volunteering, etc. Okay. The STAR method, right? For each of the bullet points, I try my best to follow the STAR or the CAR method. As you can see, I put the X's there, but that's where the numbers would go, right? Either dollar amounts that I've contributed, or percentage of growth, etc. Okay. And then, of course, focus on action, right? Very action-oriented, like verbs, right? At the very beginning of the bullet points. A hint for all of you out there, try not to have more than 3 of the same verb on your resume. It just reads very repetitive, okay, and a little bit dull, okay? So use your thesaurus, right? If you're leading, right? Maybe you've used the word led or lead 2 or 3 times, right? You can, maybe change that word up to either manage, right? Or head of, right? So do that, and your resume will read a little bit easier and smoother for the person reading it. Okay. Continuing, so because I usually apply for business development sales roles these days, a lot of my bullet points that I've chosen to highlight are more kind of business development and sales related. Education-wise, again, I list my degrees and kind of specialty areas. Don't have a graduation date. You may notice I also include a section called recognition, where it has awards, keynote speaker. Some people put skills and certifications there. This section is completely optional, okay? Unless you are applying for a technical role, okay? That's where certification skills really come into play. If you're applying for commercial roles like marketing, sales, business development, etc., you don't really need that. It doesn't hurt, but it's usually ignored, I would say, right, by most people reading the resumes, okay? And at the very bottom, you may notice that I call out something about white fonting, okay? So on social media, I've seen people really kind of try to like hack the system where they will grab the JD or the post, put everything in white, really small font, put it on the resume because they believe the ATS will then see like, oh, you're using some of these same keywords, therefore you must be a really good fit. I can tell you that does not work, okay? It sounds cool. It doesn't work, plus it's very unethical, right? So I do not recommend doing that. If you get caught, which you probably will, because the ATS is much smarter than that, it'll boot you out of the entire process, okay? Maybe even for a very long time, okay? Cool. One thing I do want to share with you is a pretty cool tool using AI. So I'm not sure how many people have heard of Notebook LM from Google, but it is a pretty cool tool. One of their components actually uses a podcast, right? So 2 people are talking about a certain thing that you've uploaded. Okay, so I decided to upload my resume and then see what it says about it. And I can ask it questions as well. This is one way that if you want call it a quote unquote third party to look at your resume and give you feedback, this is one way to do it. Okay, so let me share with you what I mean by that. Okay, so hopefully you all can see my screen here. Let me just kind of blow it up a little bit more. Okay, so as you can see, I've uploaded my resume. It actually has like a description here. I can actually ask it questions if I wanted to. But over here is really the fun part and the interactive part. Okay, so it's created a 13-minute podcast. Okay, so I'll share with you what this sounds like. Just a brief clip of it. Okay.
Welcome to today's deep dive. And
can you all hear that?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Let's try it again. I think I might have broke it by hitting pause. So let me just refresh it real fast. Load this conversation. Hopefully it takes just a couple minutes. Here we go. So again, it's very sensitive to what I would say because it thinks like I'm interacting with it. Okay, so let's play real fast and then I'll just interact with it quickly just so you get a flavor of what this can do for you. This is free, by the way. Okay.
Welcome to today's deep dive, and we're trying something a little different today.
Oh.
Yeah, so we're going to be looking at just a single document this time.
Huh. Okay.
It's Albert Chan's resume,
Interesting.
and
Oh, hey, I think our listeners got something to say.
What would you say is an opportunity in the profile section of Albert Chan's resume?
That's a great question.
yeah, let's unpack this.
Well, the profile section is really a snapshot of his value proposition.
Okay, like what's the first thing that jumps out?
What's fascinating here is that it's not just
So you get the idea, right? Again, pretty cool free tool that I recommend you look into, right? If you want a little bit more like interaction using AI to help you analyze your resume. Okay, but again, I'll share with you at the very end how I can personally help analyze your resume for you as well. Okay. Cool. So now we've talked a lot about the resume component. Let's transition now to the interview component, right? So you've successfully landed an interview. What does that look like in tech? Okay. So the process is in these stages. First, it's the ATS, then it's a recruiter screening. If you have a referral, you actually bypass the ATS and go straight to the recruiter. So it's always good to have a referral if possible. The recruiter, let's say the ATS gets roughly 100 resumes. 90 of them will get like weeded out. The recruiter has 10. He or she will then probably weed out another 5, give it to the hiring manager. The hiring manager will look at those 5 and maybe weed out another 2. So there's only 3 that really get to the kind of the panel loop interview process. Okay, and this whole time they're looking for both function and technical skill set and cultural fit. Okay, and so the reason why in tech they focus so much on behavioral interviews is because of this principle that they're assessing your past behavior and experiences as a key predictor for future performance, right? So they're evaluating all these different type of hard, technical, and even soft skills just to determine your fit, okay? Not just for the company, but also, obviously for like the role that you're applying for, okay, and vice versa. When you answer your questions in the interview, of course, use the STAR method, right? A lot of it will be like, tell me about a time, describe a challenge that you worked on, etc. If you do get questions that are more situational based of what would you do in this situation, I highly recommend that you think out loud, okay, your thought process, because the interviewer wants to see and hear, are you connecting the same dots that we potentially would connect, right? What is your logic, right? What is your reasoning? Does it make sense? And is it similar to like how some of us, right, would also kind of come with the same conclusion, right? Why or why not, okay? The key themes. This is actually very consistent across many of the tech companies out there. Okay, so when it comes to the first one, it's around leadership, right? It doesn't mean just leading and managing like your direct reports, but it's actually looking at how have you led teams, right? How have you set a vision and a strategy, energize and enable others, and then how did you get it to execution and to market? Okay, again, it can be your direct team, your direct reports, or other team that you've managed, project managed, etc. Collaboration, right? This is obviously working with others, but also working with others that may not see eye to eye, right? That have a different point of view. How did you get them to, some sort of mutual understanding or end goal, right? A lot of times you may not, right? And it's kind of a disagree but commit type of situation, right? But they want to see how good are you at collaborating with folks that are like see eye to eye and others who don't see eye to eye. Okay. Problem solving and strategic thinking, right? They kind of go hand in hand here, right? How do you solve problems? This is also probably a really good time for you to really speak out loud your thought process. Then, of course, there's 1 or 2 questions around role specific, right? So if you're applying for sales, you'll probably get 1 or 2 questions in the interview panel around sales related, your experiences there, marketing, etc. Product knowledge, right? If you're going to apply to Meta, you probably should know some of the things around Advantage Plus shopping. Or if you're applying to places like Google, you probably know the shopping YouTube product a little bit, right? Just so that you can articulate your product knowledge. And then, of course, you're going to always get this question of company values and mission, right? Like, why us? Why not the next tech company out there? Okay. I will say when the recruiter reaches out to you, those screening interviews tend to be more very like high level, making sure you're not lying on your resume type of things. And then you start getting in, and you tend to get more of the company value and mission questions, I would say. But then when you start getting to the hiring manager and to the panel, that's when the other kind of themes start to come into play. Okay. And one kind of grid I recommend you consider is actually this right here, which is to put in this grid format. And again, I'll send this to you afterwards, but I've listed out the key themes here, and then for each of them have 2 examples, right? You can just jot like one-liners or whatever, right? Just to demonstrate and kind of be able to quickly articulate your answers. Because at the end of the day, if you get to that final 2 or 3, you and the other candidates can probably do the work, right? You guys are probably very qualified to be a good candidate for this. Now it's just a matter of who answered the question better, right? Who really got down and really understood the question and gave us the right example to answer that question in a very articulate way. I was speaking with a student earlier today. Essentially, the way that once the interviewer takes the notes and everything, we score people on each of these components, right? Are they a strong fit? Are they a fit? Are they not a fit? Okay. And so then afterwards, we kind of just rank them, right? How many people got, 3 out of 4 strong fits, right? 2 out of 4 strong fits, right? And we kind of just stack rank, and then we discuss the candidates with the hiring manager, and then that hiring manager will make the decision. Okay. So again, it's not about like how good of an example did you bring to the table. Hopefully it is a good one, right? But it's really about how well did you answer the question, right? That the skill set that they're looking for, right? That's really the kind of the key area that kind of this interview process is really trying to seek out. Okay. Here's another AI tool out there, right? Some of you may be using ChatGPT, right? But I showed you one about the resume. Here's another one I want to share about your interview. If you want to do mock interviews, highly recommend you do it. If you don't know, if you don't have another person to do it with, you can use OpenAI, for example. Let me just share with you what that looks like.
Hey, so guess what? I've got a huge interview coming up, and I really would love your help preparing for it.
That's fantastic news. I'd be thrilled to help you get ready. What's the interview for, and how can we start preparing?
It's a software engineering role, and I was thinking you could do kind of a rapid fire mock interview, maybe ask me 3 questions, and at the end, you can give me some feedback.
Great idea. Let's dive straight in. First question. Can you tell me about a challenging technical problem you solved in your previous projects and how you approached?
So yeah, so hopefully you get the idea there as well.
Hey, so
yeah, again, if you need that mock interview, obviously ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, Gemini, they all can do a version of that for you as well. Okay. Now pivoting to the Hedgehog framework. Okay, so some of the students and clients that I work with, we actually go through this in much more detail, right, to really help understand what are the right companies, the right roles, et cetera, that you should be working for and applying to, okay? But because this is only one quick 45-minute session, I'm going through this pretty quickly. I do want to leave this for you to do some self-reflection, okay? But essentially, what we have here is this Venn diagram of what are your extrinsic motivators? What externally motivates you? Is it fame, fortune, whatever that is? What are your intrinsic motivators, right? Is it like development, self-development, making an impact in the world, whatever that is? And then also your strengths. What are you good at? And then once you're able to articulate and put that down, then that's when you could maybe start to hopefully steer more towards the right types of jobs, projects, companies, etc., that can really fulfill you on all three of these components. Okay. A lot of times in our lives, we don't do this exercise. We don't know what really drives all of that, and we're either burned out. We have imposter syndrome. We aren't valued as much, right? Hopefully this can help you address some of those concerns out there. Okay. Again, I know I'm flying through this pretty quickly, but hopefully I'll leave some time at the very end for Q&A, and of course, future coaching sessions if you're interested. So other useful tips I want to kind of close out with before I kind of transition to the bonus sections. The first is, if you have a dream list of companies, right, make it relatively short, 3 to 5, right? Research them very thoroughly. I actually researched a company earlier today through Gemini deep research. It came back with a 10-page report on this company and gave me a SWOT analysis and everything. So you definitely can do a lot of this research online at your fingertips. Highly recommend you leverage your network, right? Because referrals, like I mentioned, have a much better chance of getting an interview, and actually referrals have a 1 in 25 chance of being hired versus a 1 in 200 chance if you're just kind of like cold emailing and applying yourself. You still got to do it though, okay? At the end of the day, yes, the ROI might not, you feel like kind of be there, but you have to do both the warm kind of introductions and approach through referrals and also the cold outreach as well. Okay, it's a numbers game. Okay, and I would definitely cold outreach to hiring managers, recruiters, employees of companies that you admire, and hopefully one of them will get back to you and pick your brain. Okay, I get a lot of those. I reply to some of them that are creative, that I believe are very, very hungry, and they want to really, work at this company. I do reply to them as well. Focus your energy more so on resumes and less so on cover letters. Over the last 20 years or so, I've seen maybe 5 cover letters, kind of in my inbox on my desk. Most of the time it's through the resumes, right, and the application kind of profile. So I'm not saying don't do cover letters, right? But you can probably use AI to help you with that. Really spend your time on resumes, okay? Some people forget about this, but this is obviously like a human interaction, these interviews and this process. Send them a personalized thank you email, right, or letter. Sometimes the company will not allow you or the interviewer to give out their email address, right? But you can give it to the recruiter. So send it all to the recruiter, and the recruiter can send it to all of the interviewers who interviewed you. Okay, connect with them on LinkedIn. Even if you get rejected, continue to follow up. When I interviewed for Procter Gamble, I got rejected the first time. I kept in touch with the people who rejected me, and I told them this is what I've done since. Kind of get another interview. After a few months, I got another interview. And they were much more impressed because they told me exactly what I was missing from that first interview. What skill sets did I not have? What did I not articulate well enough? And I worked on those things. Okay, so it does work. Okay, and like I said, at the end of the day, don't take rejection personally. If you made it to the final rounds, you could probably do the job. It's just maybe the person answered the question better than you. Okay. On the right, this is just an example that you can use for either cold outreaches or even your cover letter. The framework here is very simple. It is intro a little bit about you. What value can you add, right? So what research did you do? What opportunity did you identify? And what can you kind of do about that? And then you kind of ask for the close, right? Or to meet with that person. Okay, so again, a lot on this page, but hopefully you can use this as a guidebook afterwards. A couple more slides, and then I'll open up for a Q&A. Okay, so when it comes to LinkedIn, right, this is your resume like 24/7, right? Everyone goes here, right? And they spend more than 7 minutes here. Usually, if a person is here, they're interested, they want to learn more about you, they're going to spend more than 7 minutes probably. Okay, so a couple of key components that make your LinkedIn profile stand out. The first one is a strong and good, clean headshot, high quality headshot. No sunglasses, right? You on the beach with your dog, right? It is you, professional headshot. Okay. The cover photo, right? The backdrop and back there, take advantage of that space, right? Put like a value prop sentence or whatever message so that people know what type of value you bring, right? My LinkedIn tends to be more focused on AI, and so I talk a lot more about building advantage through AI. Okay, some people just put like a photo. That's okay, but you're kind of like wasting that space. The first thing that people see is that cover photo. You want to ideally have it jump out. Okay. I would highly recommend you get LinkedIn Premium because it is worth the extra credits for messaging and cold outreaches, etc. Underneath the followers and above the analytics is this open to blue button, right? Click that and make sure that you have it at passively looking, okay, for jobs. And then you pick the type of jobs and titles that you want, okay, because that will then show up on recruiters' lists, okay. If you put actively looking, then you're going to get that border that says like actively looking or looking or whatever, right? You probably don't want to do that if you have another job. You don't want your current boss or company to know you are actively looking. But if you're passively looking, you still show up on recruiters' lists. So make sure you click that as well. Okay. The about section, blow this one out. Okay. This one can be very long. Okay. Because if they're willing to click this, they really want to know who you are. This is more than just the TLDR, 5 sentences. Really expand on this, right? Bring out the flavor of who you are here. Okay. Listing your top skills is important as well because that will actually tie to the types of roles that pop up, right, in the roles tab. It will also give you suggestions of other companies, right, that you might be interested in, right? So then you can maybe follow them, comment, etc. I'll also link back to maybe some of the other jobs that say like, hey, you might be a good fit, right? Or hey, this recruiter is searching for people with social media, digital marketing experience, right? So definitely do not ignore the top skills components. And then finally, I would say be very active on LinkedIn, okay? Comment, post, repost, share, etc. Right? You want to be seen as someone that is like forward thinking, brings thought leadership, right? Very passionate, has a point of view on a certain topic, etc. Okay. So those are some of the key components I would say when it comes to LinkedIn. Okay. And then finally, then I'll open it for Q&A, is if you want a personalized resume analysis, Leland does have this thing where we can offer like a free schedule, like intro call. I think some of the people on here have done that with me where I've analyzed their resume and talked about some resume and some interview like strategies specifically to them. So if you're interested, feel free to kind of go back into the Leland site and schedule a call. I'm more than happy to analyze your resume, during our session together. Okay. And with that, I will open up for a Q&A. I will probably stop sharing my screen unless someone needs me to kind of go back and forth. I'll keep it up just in case people have questions. I also see some questions in the chat now, but who wants to go first? If not, I'll just start answering the questions in the chat. Andre.
Hey, you can hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey.
Quick question. The actual PowerPoint itself, will we have access to the
Yes.
doc? Yeah?
Yes. Yes. I will send this to all of you afterwards. And there should be a recording as well. I'll need to find out from Leland where the recording is, because this is being recorded right now. I'm assuming they're going to send something afterwards. I'll have a recording, and then also it will have an option for you to leave a review. And so if I can ask everyone, please give me a review. I'm trying to build my brand on Leland. But you can always wait for the review after we do our session together as well. Okay.
Okay. I had another question.
Yeah.
Basically, like, let's say if you have a longer career,
yeah,
should you keep from putting too much info in there to avoid the age discrimination too?
I think it's okay to put all of your experiences there, Andre. You bring up a very good point, which is if you have more than 10 years, 2 pages is okay. Under 10 years, 1 page is usually the ideal. Never ever do 3 pages. Okay. So if you need to combine some roles, right, which you may have noticed on my resume, for example, here, right? So like I put just like head of industry, right? These are like 3 different types of things that I've done. Director, sales director, right? These are just like bullet points of what I've done that are more like condensed and combined, right? Versus the more recent ones that kind of blow out a little bit more per role. Okay. But yeah, it should be fine. I mean, the ageism thing, again, if people are going to do it, so they're going to do it, right? So it doesn't matter like how many experiences you have, but hopefully, yeah, you don't experience that too much by having too many like, jobs or whatever that you put on your resume. Okay. Who else has their hand raised? I see 2 people have their hand raised. Is it Shubi?
Yeah. Hey, Albert. Thanks for the session. So I had a question about cold emailing that I kind of wrote in the chat that I can articulate. So messaging, like cold emailing or messaging on LinkedIn, I've heard mixed opinions about either being completely upfront with the person you're reaching out to and saying, hey, I'm interested in this position. Can you tell me more? Keep it concise and be sensitive to kind of their time. Or some people suggest like you shouldn't start with that. You should instead start with like creating a conversation around a shared interest or show more personal interest in creating a long-term relationship. But that's also like sometimes difficult via LinkedIn, right? So I guess how would you approach cold messaging?
Yeah, it's a great question. I've received both. I actually kind of go back to this here. Unfortunately,
Hey.
I'm going to play this real fast, but I actually go back to this type of framework, right? So some version of this where the person who's cold emailing me or cold outreaching me has kind of done their research, right? And they believe that they can add some sort of value, right? So my curiosity is piqued, right? And then, they're still asking, right? Like, would it be okay for a brief introductory call, et cetera, right? So they're still making the close, right? When people are just like being like, hey, like, just want to see how things are going, right? Or whatever, right? I tend to like ignore like those people. So again, like these people's times, like all of our times, right, are very limited. So if you can quickly demonstrate like, hey, here's who I am, here's the value that I bring, the opportunity that I have called out, would love to spend some time to chat with you about it. I find at least that has a little bit more success rate.
Yeah, that's helpful to know. Thanks.
Yeah. Anthony? Are you there, Anthony? Maybe you're on mute. Any other questions? Okay, Anthony. I don't think we can hear you, Anthony. If there are no more questions, I'm going to go through the chats and answer those questions. Is that okay for folks? Okay. So how do you tell the STAR method? Like, do I start by saying, I like using the STAR method? So the STAR method essentially, I'm going to bias towards CAR just because I'm used to that. I use that at Procter Gamble, right? You can be very, very like clear because the person has to jot these notes, right? Either like, I mean, now they're typing and stuff, right? But they're typing your answers, right? And so you can be like, okay, once you hear the question, right, tell me a time when you've had to work with someone who didn't see eye to eye to you. Okay. Okay. Let me first share with you the context, right, and the background, right? This is what happened. Okay. And so in response, this is what I did, right? This is the action that I did, which led to the results of blank. Okay. So that's how you would do this very, very simply using the framework. Okay. And hopefully limits the rambling. Okay. I've seen so many good examples be kind of ruined because people were rambling. Just know that the people that you're interviewing with probably can connect the dots like fairly quickly, right? And they know what you're trying to get at. So no need to ramble on things that may not be of value as they're comparing notes at the end. And also, by the way, I forgot to mention, you can reuse your example from one interviewer to another. Okay. At the end, we don't compare like, oh, this person used the same example, right? We're going to ding them. And again, if you believe this question or this answer that you have, this experience that you have can best answer the different components, the themes, that is totally okay. Okay. Shiba, I think I answered your question there. There's a lot of big tech using it. Okay, how do I get a recording of this? Yep, hopefully you'll get that afterwards from Leland. It won't come from me. Oh, Andre, you have another question?
Yeah, it was about the hedgehog diagram.
Yeah.
Is that something like you learned like just in practice, like at work, or was this through some of your additional education and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I got exposure to it in business school, but it is in Jim Collins's book, From Good to Great. If you want the origin of it all, I think it is a Japanese framework called Ikigai. Ikigai has a fourth element, which is what does the world need? And so you would have four things you got to think about. I tend to just focus on the three for right now, but if you wanted the hardcore origin, it's the Ikigai framework.
Gotcha. Would you say it's more value, like when you're more senior, is it better to, I guess, upskill in more of those soft skills as opposed to the technical stuff, like say like certifications or even like functional knowledge? Is it more beneficial to focus on those type of frameworks and stuff or concepts?
No, I mean, I think these frameworks help you figure out who you are, right, as a leader, right, and what motivates you, right. Again, like it depends on like what you're looking for in your career and in life, right. I find that if you get exposure to these earlier in your career, it's just as beneficial, if not more beneficial, because then you can really start the path towards, you know, your career and hopefully some sort of balance, right, and appreciation and self-appreciation as well, versus you kind of just going through the grind and like being miserable, and then, you know, when you're like 50 or whatever, then you get exposure to this framework and you're like, crap, I just wasted like 30 years of my life realizing I've not been working in the Venn diagram overlap, right. So I do see value in this, in addition to what you talked about, some of the technical things as well. Cool. Yes. And so, Lauren, you talked a little bit about the LinkedIn. Yes, recruiters only. Yes, if you do the all LinkedIn members, you're going to get that green, I guess like ribbon or whatever on your LinkedIn profile. Okay. How precise should I be in my role? If I'm applying for project manager, does it appear too scattered? It doesn't matter. Like you can do like a shotgun approach, right, and apply for all these different types of roles and stuff, right? And on your LinkedIn, it's really up to you. I don't think there's one way or another on like how you want to talk about them. I would probably maybe lean towards being like choosing the 2 or 3, right, that have some sort of like overlap of some sort, right? Like I wouldn't be like engineer and then marketing manager or whatever. I think those might be a little too different, right? But if you're looking at project management, program management, right, I think there is a little bit of overlap there, okay, and synergies there. Okay. What do you look for in a company that's helped you narrow down which companies you apply for? So I think the Hedgehog framework is definitely one of them, right? Some people use Glassdoor, right, to really understand from others. Also my network, right? Chatting with people to understand who enjoys working at certain companies and who doesn't, right? So I would definitely recommend you use your network as well, okay? And then do you recommend a specific time to apply on LinkedIn? Alvinoff, I think that is a myth. Late night ideal, I think it's a myth. Honestly, I don't think even applying on LinkedIn is very good. I think you finding the jobs on places like LinkedIn and Indeed are good, and then you go to those websites and you apply on those directly. I think the direct application or whatever, I've not heard much success on those. Actually, if you read something like the Reddit threads and online, people actually think it's kind of a joke, right? I don't know if anyone works at LinkedIn. I don't want to offend anyone, but I think it is a good platform for you to be aware of what roles are being posted. And then you want to go to those websites and apply on those websites specifically. And then same thing, there is no specific time. It's really when the ATS will just run its course and then it'll spit it out to the recruiter's inbox, and then he or she will look at it whenever they're ready. Okay, but there's no good time, bad time. Okay, Anthony.
Hey, Albert. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, thanks for the content and your time tonight. I appreciate it. I just had a question about LinkedIn, like your headline. So, how would you recommend approaching that if you're someone who is in a current role, but you're trying to do a career transition and you're connected with a lot of coworkers and you don't want to say, hey, I'm transitioning out of this role into this. What's a strategic way to approach that where you're not compromising your current role, but yet putting yourself out there for potential new roles?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think there's like 2 different components, right? I think the first one is the cover photo behind you, right? I think that value prop, right, of what you offer can be like a little bit like not vague, but kind of it casts a wide net, right? So you can be like a business leader, right? Helping customers make transformative change or whatever that is, right? Again, that's just really to catch people's attention of like what value do you bring to the table, right? And it can be in your current career or in a career change, right? But I wouldn't go super. I mean, if you want, you can go super specific, right? But I think that would probably be like the best bet, just again to catch people's attention, right, of what value you bring to the table.
Yeah,
And then, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, because oftentimes you have your current role, like you're this position at this company in your headline, and it's kind of hard to like, I don't know what's the best way. Just take your current role out of your headline and then just put like,
Oh,
more.
your headline. Got it.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, like you say, like
Yes.
you're in
Yes.
this role at this company. How do you approach that where you're not putting like, hey, I'm
Yes.
at this company transitioning into like product management, and someone in your company's like, hey, what's up with that?
Yes. You bring up a very good point, which is I didn't talk about the headline. If you look at mine, I do have my headline as my role. It is actually recommended by LinkedIn to not do that, right? So as you can see, I have put like meta director, right, head of sales, right, teacher, board, right? Like they actually recommend you don't do that. The reason why I did that is because, a long story, I had a lot of advertisers reach out for something, and I needed to tell them I was the director for this type of the business for Meta. But if you would have looked at my profile a few months ago, right, it would have been something more generic, right? Like kind of like what I had in my resume, sales and marketing leader, right? Focusing on AI or whatever that is, right? So yeah, you can put something here that does not focus on your specific role, if that makes sense.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. And then I would say when you start to comment, when you start to follow and stuff, right, and post, I would maybe look at posting some of your career change things just to show your point of view and your expertise there, your interest there too. Okay. Cool. Stacy?
Hi, Albert. Thank you for everything tonight. It's been really great and helpful. My quick question to you is, I've been using LinkedIn. Let me just start here. I've been using LinkedIn to find like smaller startup companies, but then what it'll lead to is like the companies being more like a spam type of thing. And so do you recommend another platform to use to find startup tech companies, or do you just like recommend another research method or something?
I think Crunchbase is a good one. But that one doesn't have like a social media component. It literally is just a research of startups. But it gives you the founders and some of the people's information there, right? Sometimes it gives you their LinkedIn profile. So then you can click those and go back to LinkedIn and find them, right? But Crunchbase is probably one I'd recommend then if you're looking at startups.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Nas? Nas?
Hi Albert, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
First of all, thank you for this session. So I just wanted to add few points. Is that okay?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so somebody asked, how do you implement the STAR methodology? So some very few quick tips regarding this. So number one is use action verbs when you are writing your accomplishments. For example, if you are a developer, write developed, or if you are a marketer, write scaled, something of that sort. For some other examples might be amplified, doubled, or transformed, something which shows that you have actually done the work. Tip number two is it's very important, quantify your results, that is use numbers. For example, you can say something like managed 35 accounts and achieved a 3 to 5% month on month growth, generating 50,000 k revenue, something of that sort. So you're actually putting the numbers over there. And then tip number three is highly customize all these things to the skill that you're to the skills that are there in the job description, so that it passes through the ATS thing. And then somebody asked whether we can use something else other than LinkedIn. So there is a platform which is similar to LinkedIn, but it is specific to Germany, and it is called as Zing. Maybe you can check it out. There also startups mostly show up.
Cool.
Yeah,
Appreciate it, Nas. Any other questions? I know we're over time here, and I appreciate everyone staying. Any other questions? Cool. Well, hopefully this was helpful. Again, a few nuggets here and there were helpful. I will send the deck to everyone afterwards, and then be on the lookout from Leland on maybe like a review or summary or feedback or whatever. And of course, please feel free to schedule time with me if you want to have coaching sessions, me to review your resume, life coaching, whatever that is. I am there for you. Okay, so thank you so much, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.